I know. I'm trying to think of a good thing to say. If you haven't made your way back into your seat, please make your way back into your seat. He just put it down. He did. There we go. Sorry, I moved your mic.
So if they have the less than 3.5 literacy and they're full-time TV, now full-time TV does not mean that they have to have self-contained. You can prove as long as you provide service of all the subject areas and you wonder if something so it could be pre-teaching, reteaching, it could be helping with para, it could be a quick one about the uniform in the classroom. Like there's ways to do it.
All right, we're going to get started back on staffing in just 30 seconds here. All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate that everybody just came back and got quiet and I didn't have to do, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. All right, so we're going to start talking about staffing. My name is Penny Franzman. I'm one of the newer members on the multilingual team at ISB, and I'm so excited to be able to pass it over to, the crowned king of multilingual, saying Nalu after this. So here we go. Requirements for hiring someone to become a bilingual or ESL teacher. A teacher of transitional bilingual education means a teacher with a speaking and reading ability in a language other than English, in which transitional bilingual education is offered, and with communicative skills in English. Meaning you can't hire someone who speaks Urdu to teach Spanish bilingual. Common sense, right? All right, we have links on this here that will go directly to our licensure website, but the things that are available to you for your professional educator license, also known as your PEL, is early childhood, elementary, middle grade, senior high, special, endorsements, and early childhood special ed. So these are the basics of licensure that are available if you're not familiar with them. And again, you'll be able to link to the website with descriptions of each of these once you get this presentation. We also have what we kind of make a nickname as the ELS TBE. You'll hear us talk about that. That is the educator license with stipulations, transitional bilingual educator. So these are teachers that can teach in pre-K through 12. They have basically like a specialty kind of a license where they can come in, but they cannot renew this license. And you'll want to get that person their teaching degree if you find them that they're high quality. Oh no, there's a question. I told Trevor I wasn't going to answer any questions.
Transitional bilingual license?
For the pre-K ELS TBE, for ELS TBE, no. To teach pre-K through 12, they just need the ELS TBE endorsement. License. Let me say the right word. License. Okay, we also have a visiting international teacher. That's, in our lingo, we call it a VIT. These are teachers that are sought out and their foreign credentials are evaluated. This is good for up to 5 years. There's also an educator license with stipulations for paraprofessionals. If you're looking for someone that you know is really good in a language that you really need, you can go with an ELS for the paraprofessional. Again, good for 5 years. All right, so who can teach TBE and TPI? A teacher with a bilingual pre-K-12 endorsement can teach bilingual classes in the grades and content areas of their PEL. So these are the two important parts, the grade and the content area, because we've got PK through 12 on our license now for the endorsement. So an individual who holds a PEL with a senior high endorsement, that's the grade. They have a math endorsement, that's the content. And a bilingual PK-12 endorsement, can teach bilingual math in high school grades 9 through 12. Okay, so that's a lot, and it's a mouthful. A teacher with an ESL PK-12 endorsement is qualified to teach ESL classes in grades and content areas assigned to the Pell. Same thing, grades and content area. So an individual who holds a Pell with a middle school endorsement, the grade, a science endorsement, content, and an ESL PK-12 endorsement can teach ESL science in grades 5 through 8. Don't mind that. Oh, good, close. They can teach ESL in a self-contained or a pull-out push-in setting based on what you're doing in that school, what your program is for that school. Whoa. Oh, it didn't work. Well, I had a question there. Well, I'm going to ask you the question. Don't write anything. If a person has a pre-K-12 bilingual endorsement, they have an early childhood endorsement, can they teach a 4th grade bilingual class? They have a pre-K-12 bilingual and an early childhood endorsement. Can they teach a 4th grade bilingual class? No. No, they cannot. I was trying to stump you. So if they have early childhood, they can teach birth through 2nd, right? So they can't teach anything past 2nd grade. All right. Program director requirements. There are requirements for program directors who are running multilingual programs. You must have a Pell. You must have an administrative or supervisory endorsement. Then there are a couple of stipulations. If there are more than 200 ELs in the district, you must have a bilingual endorsement or an ENL endorsement with a language designation. Or 18 semester hours of coursework toward your bilingual endorsement. So 3 different options for that one. If you only have TPI programs, you must have either the ESL or bilingual endorsement, the ENL endorsement, or 18 semester hours towards the endorsement. No, it doesn't want to. I can dance. Oh, it won't even go on the laptop. Technical issue, 1 moment. Oh, weird.
Okay, let's see. There we go.
Okay, so the next stipulation is for directors in a district with fewer than 200 English learners. The director has to have an ESL or bilingual endorsement, ENL endorsement, or 18 semester hours, similar to the other one. If the director does not have those endorsements, they can still run the program, but they must have at least 8 hours of professional development annually related to EL students. And that professional development, a really great place to go to look for that is on the ISB website. We offer so much professional development free of charge to you guys. Oh, there was another point on here, but there we go. Here it is. If there's a program change. So if the number of ELs increases to 200, or if you went from TPI to TBE, the program director has 3 years to get the new requirements for the position. So you'll have 3 years to get those additional endorsements. If, however, the district chooses to hire a different program director, the new program director must meet all the requirements. All right, I tried this one with Menti, but Menti doesn't like me, apparently. So I had a couple of ideas about Well, staffing is a huge issue right now, right? How do we find people? Where do we find people? So I thought, reach out to the ethnic language schools in your area, look for publications, and then document what you've done. So when the Title III grants and all that stuff and we ask for all that background information, just make sure you have it at your fingertips. This is what we tried. Oh, and it didn't work. Okay. Yeah. So the other ideas that we had here. Oh, I wonder if it was because I closed that before.
Go ahead and close it.
Okay.
And then click back on there.
Okay. All right. Some suggestions or ideas. Make a spreadsheet with everyone who has their endorsements so that you have easy access to this. Work with your HR director, and then you can go through and assign those ELs to those particular classrooms. Use Title II or ESSER funds. Send your staff members back if they're willing to get their ESL or their bilingual endorsement. Send them back to school. Submit transcripts to the licensure department after they have 9 hours of ESL or bilingual coursework, and teachers can serve as the endorsed teachers that you need with a short-term approval. And just to reiterate, that happens in licensure. That doesn't happen in our department. And then ask your world language educators to consider getting one of their endorsements. All right. Here we go. So here's menti.com. Use the code 7851555. We've gone through a couple of different suggestions. Name one new way that you might locate and hire strong ESL or bilingual teachers. Feel free to ask a neighbor too. Ooh, former students. That's a juicy one. Visiting teachers, yes. College students,
Yeah.
local universities, job fairs. These are great. IRC courses, HR department, grow our own. I love that. I had lots of students I encouraged to become teachers. These are awesome. Parents. Don't forget your parents. Your parents are such a good resource.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Sang. Woohoo! Do you need this? I didn't use it.
Yeah.
Here you go.
This one. Good afternoon, everyone. After Penny, let me just step out a little bit so that you can see me because I'm pretty short compared to her. So here I am. Again, my name is Seng Nao Lu. Other new program directors, or sometimes they call me the EL guy. Okay. It's nice to see all of you here, and we apologize that we have not been able to come out to your regions to provide this type of training. Usually, under any normal circumstances, we would have come out to different regions and do this, in more detail, whole day presentation to go through all the requirements. But because of the COVID, we weren't able to come out the last 2 years, so I hope you get everything from the presentation and that you are taking a good note beside, the note that we have on the presentation. If you guys, any of you has a blue dots, you probably know who I am or have talked to me in the past, either on the phones or talk to me directly. But any other colors you may have not met me or spoken to me, but you will eventually, for sure. For me, I said it's not a blue dots anymore. It's probably multiple black dots here. I've been with the ISB for a long time. I remember our first program directors meeting we have 35 directors, about 35 school districts that are serving EL students at that time. We have a conference in a small Holiday Inn by Route 290. Okay, that's what we used to. Yes, that's what we did. And at that time, we have about 55,000 EL students in the state. 85% of the students were from CPS. The rest were downstate. Today, we have more than 200, close to 275,000 EL students across Illinois. Over 600 school districts are serving EL students, anywhere between 1 to 75,000 CPS. That's what we have, over 600 school districts. Each and every year, we have about 1/3 of our program director or program coordinator, whichever you call it, new directors. So it is very rewarding to be here and to speak to you, to walk you through all of this. So after you know what is required, Tamara talked to you about the law, the requirement, the act that passed through decades and decades ago of the requirements. We talk about our state mandated requirements. Illinois is only a few of the states that have required a mandated transitional bilingual education. Texas, California, Illinois, and few other states have that requirements. So many times school program director, when they call us, they said, I have a new student here. What are some of the requirements that I need to provide? We walk them through the mandated, we walk into the federal requirements, Title VI of Civil Rights, the law versus nickel. We walk them through all of this. They follow up with a question. So where's the beef? Well, I'm gonna walk you through where we can find the cows here, okay? So I'm gonna walk you through as a district, fiscal planner of how you are using your funds at the state. Before I step to it, I'm gonna walk you through your local funds, your state fund, your federal Title III, and other federal program. Keep in mind that of all your students, EL student is probably one of the groups that generate the most money for your school district. Your EL students generate your local and state fund, which generated by your county and township government taxes. They generate your state general aid funds, known as evidence-based funding. Under evidence-based funding, there's a separate, including in the EBF, there's what used to be known EL-TBE-TPI state funding, now known as EL-EBF, English Learner Evidence-Based Funding. On top of that, there's a federal Title III. That's a federal, that's not state. And under Title III, there are two programs under that, your Language Instruction Education Program funds and your Immigrant Student Education Program funds. The only requirements for those two is that you need to also, under the any federal grant, you need to consult with private school that you are going to apply for that. Then beside the money that target to EL student, there are all these other federal grants that are going toward EL student, because EL student also made all these other federal grants definition. Okay, so I'm gonna walk you through first, as a program director, what you need to do when you sit down with your fiscal manager or your superintendent planning for the following year. How you're gonna provide services and through what source of funding. First and foremost, student is a student. Whether they are EL student, special ed student, whether they're immigrant student legally or not legally, they are your student, and they are generate your local fund, okay, through your property tax or through any of your referendums. That's the money that first should go toward providing services for students, regardless of what. That's your first part of money. You have a 20 student, 25 students in the self-contained classroom. Who is paying for that? Normally, that money, that teacher's salary should be funded by your local fund. Because with or without the state EBF fund, you are still required to have a teacher in that classroom to provide services to those students. That's what you need to take it back when you're looking at staffing for these classes. Self-contained classes, 25 teachers for every school. A classroom, whether they are gen student or they are bilingual student or they are EL student, they generate fund. They generate one position, a teacher. So that's where your local fund should go and pay for that. Okay? Now, the state, because the state have a mandated program. Bilingual is a mandated program. The state does provide EBF, general state aid to school, throughout the state, through our tax money. EBF for Student Success Act passed in August 31st of 2017, combining all these general state aid from different programs into one pot of money, one single fund under EBF. Okay? But because they don't want the money to disappear into the general state aid as EBF, they tee out two things, special ed funds and the EL EBF. Telling school district that this part of money shouldn't go toward paying for EL services, only targeted for EL services. The law said to pay for excess costs or provide EL services. What does it mean by EL excess costs? Your self-contained bilingual class, is that excess cost? No. With or without this money, by Title VI of Civil Rights, Lau versus Nickel, your local school, the state policy, you are required to have a teacher for this. Excess cost is when, for example, if your teacher's salary, while you need to pull the student, pushing or pull out model that you may need extra teachers to provide services, and ESL teachers, you know, that's probably excess cost. Your paraprofessional, a teacher to reduce class size 90%, okay, and additional, that's excess cost. So when you look at your EL, EBF, think of that when you are planning for that. In addition, now, I'm walking you through like a planner. First, I'm talking about your local fund, okay? Now I'm talking about your general state aid, EBF. And then I talk about your EL, EBF, that should go toward your student, implementing the program. Now, next to that is your other federal grants. You have a Title I. Your EL students are at-risk students. Many of your EL students, most of them are coming from a low social economic background. You are at risk. They are eligible for Title I. Title I federal grant, the ESSER grants that your local school district, all have some commonality, okay, to do some type of professional development intervention for your multi-tier system, okay? In your multi-tier system for support, if EL student fall into certain tier, what you need to do? You need to hire or bring in interventionalists, specialists that address the need of EL student. You can use Title I, other federal grant, to do that all sort of thing before you can tap into your Title III, which is also federal grant. Title III is to supplement, not supplant. So in our state, Illinois has a mandate TBE program. Anything that is mandated by the state and by the local school district, you cannot use your Title III for it. Anything that is implemented or paid for by other federal grant, your Title III cannot supplant those. Whereas your other federal grant can supplant Title III because that is in the federal rules, that other federal grant can supplant other federal grant. They cannot supplant state requirements, but they can supplant other federal grant, except they can also supplant Title III. The Title III is very clear. They cannot supplant the state requirement. They cannot supplant other federal grant. So that is the crop. So here, the cake, your local fund, your state fund, that's what you need to do, the foundation of providing services. Then you use your other federal grants to support any supplemental program. On top of that, then that's icing on the cake, Raspberry Title III funding that you can use. These are the different sources of fund that you can use to support. So as a program directors, you need to be an activist for your student. You need to find out what are the money that go into support this. You will see, if you're not participating, and I'll ask you a question later when it comes to how much involvement you have. So we talk about local funding sources, we talk about state funding sources, evidence-based funding, EL/EBF, so far. So first, evidence-based funding spending. Can you use funding to pay for excess costs of the requirements of running an EL program? However, 60% must be used for instructional related costs. How many of you are familiar with EL/EBF? Can you raise your hand? Only a few. How many of you know that as of fiscal year 2022, how much EL/EBF your school district received? Only a handful. When you go back to, I have a website here. When you go back to your district, go to ISBE website, looking under evidence-based funding. There's a breakout for EL/EBF, what your district is receiving. That's the portion of the money that you need to plan for fiscal year 22. What is, under evidence-based funding, what is the requirements for that in terms of report? Your EL/EBF fund, once you go back, you look at that, you plan of how you are going to use that plan of how you're going to use that money to pay for the excess costs need to be reviewed by your Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee for input and recommendation. That's what you need to do. That is one of the requirements that you see that was presented earlier as part of the BPAC's responsibility. And part of your responsibility is that need to be communicated to your BPAC. Not only that, that plan is part of your entire EBF spending plan. EL/EBF is a small piece of that, of how much of that money are going towards spending for EL related services. And that plan need to be, your EBF spending plan also need to be reviewed by your Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee. How many of you in this room can you raise your hand that know that you are required to have a Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee? Okay, good, majority of that. If you don't, we will be posting all school districts that are required to have that have large enough number of students from the same language background in one of the attendance center that require a BPAC, because if not, you will need to put together a BPAC really soon so that they can review the plan, your spending plan. So here is a question for you. As a program director of the EL program in your district, what is your level of involvement in the development of your EL EBF spending plan on a yearly basis? Yeah, looks like, a good numbers of, program director does. Can I just do a quick survey? How many of you have a Title III, federal Title III program? Okay, because majority of you have a Title III program, you know that you need to participate. Because you have a Title III, that means that most of you probably have a TBE, TPI programs already. We have a total of 600 school districts. About 256 school districts have a Title III. The rest of them, 400 school districts, did not have Title III. That means that we know that they have a program out there, but how much do they know about the requirements? We don't. So this is something, if you are new, you are not Title III program director, you are bilingual, you need to know that you can have access to this money. And what are some of the requirements? Okay. For those of you who have not applied for federal grant, whether Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, Title V, all federal grants has some similar type of application, report, and accountability. If you apply for any of these federal grants, including Title III, okay, you need to complete the consolidated district plan, okay? Consolidated district plan. How many of you involved in putting together the consolidated CDP for the federal grant? Okay, you are too. For all of you who wish or applying for any federal grant, you need to have involved in putting your CDP with the rest of other program directors. If you're applying for federal grant, one of the responsibilities is that you need to submit a biannual grant periodic report. For those of you that have a Title III, both program, the federal LIP program, Title III LIP, and the immigrant student education program, you are required to submit, and you have a Title III, you are required to submit a biannual grant periodic report. In our program, Title III, for Title I, Title II, and other title, you only need to submit 2 grant periodic report because their fiscal year running from July 1st to June 30th. All is a little different. We started from September and ended August. So our first grant periodic report due is January 1st, including the September. Our second one is July 31st. And our third one, which covered the 2 months that normally most school districts offer summer school. Okay, that's the third one. Okay, so ours has a 3 grant periodic report. That's one of the report that we require. And all federal Title III, unlike your EBF, where the money coming to you, your school district as part of the EBF, Title III, all title grant, Title I, Title II, Title III, which is grants for your EL student, you are required to submit a quarterly expenditure report to get your money back. Even if you don't spend any money the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, you still are required to submit that report and put down 0 that you did not spend any money, okay? To get your money, you need to submit your expenditure report. Expenditure report due on the 20th after each quarter. The first quarter is the first 3 months. The second quarter is the next 3 months. So the first quarter is right January, February, March. July, August, September. So that means October 20 is your first expenditure report. Okay, that's how you submit your expenditure report. EBF, you don't need to submit it. Expenditure report until the very year end, and we'll talk about that. So now going back to Title III. Title III, like I said before, is to supplement what you are it's required under state and other federal requirement. And under Title III, like I said, you have a 2 program, the Language Instruction Educational Program and the Immigrant Student Program. The Language Instructional Program is fund that will help you to develop a program to improve the education of EL by assisting them to learn English and meet challenge state academic content and standard. The Immigrant Student Education Program, in short, is used to enhance instructional opportunity for immigrant youth and children. The grant period for your Title III beginning September 1st and end August. Your Title III, how did you know how much your Title III, how much you are getting in your Title III if you were to apply? Title III LIP is based on, it's a formula base, okay? It is based on the number of EL students you identify in your school district, plus any private school EL student that want to participate in the program. Those are the number of students that we would count. Okay. So who won't be eligible to apply for Title III LIPs? All school districts serving EL students are eligible to apply for the federal Title III LIPs. The only difference is that, first, funding is based on the number of EL students. Secondly, districts wishing to apply for the Title III LIPs must submit a consolidated Title III intended to apply. What I mean consolidated is because in that consolidated intended to apply, we have Title III LIPs and Title III immigrants. I said program. So when you complete that, that intended to apply is published sometime in January. We allow school district 3 months to submit it to ISBE. The earlier you submit it to ISBE, your site consultant will have the opportunity to take a look at your number that you report and get back to you if any of those numbers are not accurate. Any EL student enrolled in the TBE, TPI, parent refusal, they all qualify, okay? Except students who were not placed in any of those programs. And we have numbers of school districts that by March, they still have not placed their student. And when that happens, you will not show any funding in your Title III ceiling calculator. We normally review through it. If that number, if you have 500 students and I see only 2 students that have not been placed, I may not have emailed you to inform you that you have 2 students that are not being placed. I mean, that's so small. But if you have 500 students and hundreds of your students will still have not placed, definitely we will try to help you, notify you that, hey, you have 100 students who are not placed yet. You are going to lose it out, and once we pull the number of students to generate the funding. Okay. The third one, in order for you to apply as a single district, you have to have a number of students enough to generate the funding. And the threshold of that is $10,000. So you have to have enough number of students to generate $10,000. And how do you come to $10,000? How many students do we need in our district? If you don't have that number, let's say you only have a 20 or 30 or 40, then you know right that you are far off, because in the last 2 years, the way we base our per student allocation is depending on how much money the federal appropriated to us in Illinois. We are the 5th largest state, so we receive probably the 5th largest allocation for Title III, okay? And somewhere close to $30 million per year. So here is the question to you. How many students do you need to have in order to apply for Title III as a single district? Okay, most of you that have Title III, you will check 118. 118 is this year, 2022, for 2022, because the per student allocation is 85. So you need 118 students to generate that to apply as a single district. The rest that have lower than 118, they either form a consortium with other school district. But moving forward, it really depends on how much money we have next year. It could be $100 per student. And if we have enough money to fund those school districts that apply for it, and based on the number of students, we can afford to fund per student allocation $100 per student, then we will use that. We will use that allocation sometime in March to determine, to decide how much is per student allocation.
But we don't know that the price of the amount's going up.
Yeah, but at this time we don't know, because we don't have the allocation from the Fed yet. Okay, and we don't know how many districts are applying, how many total, because we need to set aside that money and divide it to all students. If your district apply for Title III LIP grants, how much money is allocated per student? We talked about that. Most of the school district put out 85. Yes, 85 is the correct one. The last 2 years we went 85. The year before that it was $100. 10 years ago it was somewhere about 175. And let me say this again. Title III is just tiny money. The big part of your money that should go to provide EL services to address the need of EL students are your Title I. They got lots of money, over $1,000 per student. And their job is also to educate EL students. Okay, so work with your Title I directors. What is required under Title III LIPS application and report? If you are decided for new program director that don't have a Title III, what are some of the responsibility? A, come January when we publish the intended to apply, you need to get on the ball, apply and submit the intended to apply. We'll let you know whether you can apply as a single district or you need to form a consortium. I encourage you to apply for both the LIPS and the immigrants unless you find that you don't have any immigrant student in your school district. Let us decide. Let us look at your number and determine whether you are eligible for the immigrant. If you don't, then we'll let you know you are not. But if you are eligible, a small amount of money that you can buy textbook or a license or pay license fee for certain program for your immigrant student, hey, that goes a long way. You need to also consult with private school within your school district boundary. That is a requirement. And like, don't wait for Title I, Title II, because I'll come out early. We need to know way ahead of time how many private school students you have. So consultation with private school at the time that you decide you are going to apply for Title III. Talk to them, have a meaningful consultation with them to see if they want to participate, how many students do they have, okay? Then you need to submit Title III application. Our latest for 2022, our application went out in early September because it came out because of ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3. All these applications need to get out as a priority over us. Their application came out first. I was delayed this year, but it did go out on September 1st. And we said anybody, school districts submit their Title III late by September 30th, or no, by October 1st. It will have a retroactive back to September 1st. So for all your Title III director, if you have not submit your Title III budget or application, do it now, because now it's already after October 1. Any application that you are submit now will have a retroactive date to the date we receive your application. At the end of each fiscal year, and during the year, you have a GADA report, the Grand Periodic Report. That's one of the requirements that you need to submit. At the end of the year, you need to submit a program delivery report telling us, how did you do with your professional developments? How many people attended? What sorts of professional developments you're providing. And then you need to do your quarterly expenditure report to get your money. That's all the requirements for your Title III. ISEP program, how much time do we have? We got plenty. Oh, okay, so I don't need to rush through this. Okay, with your immigrant, it's a little different. Again, all school districts serving immigrant children and youth are eligible to apply for federal Title III ISEP. There are only some exceptions. And the funding is based on the current year immigrant student enrollment. So for example, in fiscal year 22 here, at this time here, we don't know whether the district that applying for ISEP for this year are going to be eligible, because it is based on the current year's enrollment. And the current year enrollment due date is not until your fall housing report data is uploaded into our state data system. Okay, so most likely by the end of October or November 12th, that's when all the data for housing report data need to be uploaded. That's when we're gonna extract the number of immigrant students. And we're gonna compare that number to previous year. But before we get to that, many of you, what is immigrant student? Immigrant student just not someone born outside of the United States. Immigrant student under Title III definition is someone born outside of the United States, or Puerto Rico, and have not been enrolled in any of a U.S. school. When we say any of U.S. school, we talk about private schools as well. Have not been enrolled in any of U.S. school for more than 3 full academic years. Not calendar year, 3 full academic years. Okay? And so if a child is born in Italy and moved here when she or he was 5 months old, is this child, when enrolled in pre-K, is considered immigrant student? Yes. Okay, this child have not enrolled in any of the U.S. school for more than 3 full academic years. That's how do we determine that when we do a count? Normally, what we would do is that when a student first enrolled in Illinois school district, through your data that we upload into our system, it will identify when the first student enrolled in Illinois public school. That date log into, input it into our data system. We count that date to the date we poll to see if this student is enrolled more than 3 years in the school system, and we extract those number of students. There may be time to time where a student transfer from another state, enroll in another state, and move to Illinois. Okay, we ask for further information whether these students enroll in other states, and they can also be pulled up if they have not been enrolled in the U.S. school for more than 3 years. And that's what we are talking about. All students born outside of the United States, you need to complete that data. Otherwise, if you look at your data report, it will say incomplete, complete 20%, complete 30%. Regardless of whether you complete this by November 12, you cannot exit this student unless you complete your data at the end of the school year. But for funding purposes, you need to have that done by November 12. And which district would be eligible? A, you got to have at least 10 immigrant student report as currently enrolled in your school district. 2, you need to have 3% increase or 50 students in your current immigrant student enrollment from the average of 2 previous years to be eligible. Okay, so first we look at that 10. Second, we take a look at compared to your 2 previous years to see if you have 50 student increase or 3%, whichever is fewer. Example, if I look at CPS have a, let's say, 5,000 immigrant students, but CPS did not have, this year if CPS did not have 3% increase or 50 student increase from the previous 2 years, CPS won't be eligible for immigrants, although they have a 5,000 immigrant student, whereas another school district may have a 15 student, they are eligible for it. Okay, so immigrants, like I said before, you are not sure, apply for it, we'll take a look. If you're eligible, we notify you, we'll give you your funding. Okay. That's all. And although the number 6 saying that you need to have a threshold of 10,000, we'll revise that when we put out a final version. No, with the immigrants, you don't need to generate $10,000 to apply. It could be 1,000, it could be 2,000. You don't have to apply for Title III LIPS to be eligible for the immigrant. Okay, so the next question is, in order for a district to apply for the immigrant student education program, what are the eligibility requirements? At least 5 immigrant students newly enrolled, an increase of 30 students or 2%. That's one of the answer. The other one, 10 immigrant students, 50 or 3%, whichever is fewer. At least 15 immigrant students newly enrolled, and 1% increase, whichever fewer. Yep, most of you got it correct. Almost all of you. At least 10 students currently enrolled, 3% increase or 50% increase from the average of 2 previous years. So that's where we look at. When we extract your data, we run the report to see if that's what you mean. If you do, then you will be notified of your allocation, and you will be given the opportunity to apply for immigrants. We already have our immigrants application ready to publish. Okay? For those of you who have fiscal year 21 immigrants in our program, and you have filed your final expenditure report as of September 20th, we will run that report, and we will have if you have any carryover, we will publish your application so that you can apply for your ISEP as soon as possible. The new school district that won't be eligible, that information probably won't come to you until probably late November, early December with the allocation, so you can apply for your ISEP grant. And for those of you who have never applied for Title III, keep this in mind, that come January, the Title III application is consolidated, intended to apply is going out. So if you need more information, you can contact your consultant. We'll have that intended to apply published. Okay, Title III ISEP is the same as the Title III LIP. You have all intended to apply that you need to submit. You need to consult private school. Do it at the same time as you do with your LIP. Don't do it separately, because, when you go out there, we're going to apply for Title III LIP, and we're going to apply for the immigrant education program. Consult with your private school, okay? And make sure that your CDP is submitted. I believe all school districts, 800 or so school districts, with a handful of them have already submitted your CDP, because one way or the other, your district probably eligible for one of those federal grants. And in order for you to get any of your federal grants, including Title III approved, your CDP has to be approved first. So right now, I think it's pretty much almost, I would say about 85% of the school district, 850 school districts already have their CDPs approved. Okay. Again, the application need to be submitted. Just because you submit intended to apply, that does not mean that you automatically, have the ISEP grant. You still need to follow up with your application, the GATA report. If you get approved for your Title III, you need to do your biannual grant periodic report. You are required to submit your program delivery report at the end. That's the information that we are collect and submitted to our federal governments regarding the Title III, the type of activity that are being provided. Again, quarterly report of expenditure must be submitted. I have some important date here, okay? You can take a look, but I'm gonna tell you the most important one that's coming up right now is that for all of you, whether you have, for all school districts, that 600 or more school districts that identify EL student in your school district, today we have published our bilingual service plan. Some of you that have a fewer than 20 students, you will need to complete that BSP and submit it to the state. Fewer than 20, you are required to submit. We combine both the short and long version together. Today, we publish it. You should receive it. You get back it, pull it up. If you have a fewer than 20 EL students in your school district, that number we extracted from last year. It's based from last year, not the current year. Okay? And we have a list of school districts that are required to complete the long version and the short version. 20 or fewer complete the short version. You need to complete that. 20 or 20 or more, you need to complete the long version. And long version is, require a couple pages more than the short version, which is very simple. If you haven't completed one in the past, you probably know how they are different. It's going up. We'll give school districts 60 days to complete it and return it to us. The reason we give you 60 days because we want to give you enough time to complete that plan and share that with your bilingual advisory committee, okay, before you submit it to us. Okay, so it's going out today. It's a little late, but that's the very first report. Secondly, if you have a Title III and you have not submitted your application, please do it as soon as possible, okay? And third, make sure if you're applying for immigrant program, make sure that you upload all your data onto SIS. Deadline for that is November. If you submit your fall housing report and you have not, you go into the data and you find out that your immigrant student data is only 50% complete, then complete it 100% so that we can pull correct information. Okay, so that's pretty much the important date. There are some important dates that here you need to look at it, and if you have any question, you can let us know. Okay, now I'm gonna see if Joanne has any announcements, or next I'm gonna hand the microphone to Tamara. Okay.
Saying, how many languages do you speak? If you want to know a true EL, they're saying 5 different languages, and you should hear him on the phone. I sit right by him. It's amazing. So he is definitely a hero story in our multilingual department. I'm going to give you some words of advice. 1, listen to saying. 2, listen to saying. When I first came to ISB from the schools, there's a lot that I did not know. And so the biggest thing that I would encourage all of you to do is to try to, like we said at our Title I meeting 2 weeks ago, get off the EL island. You know, all of us somehow are pocketed, and we really don't want to do that anymore. So if you have not participated in the CDP, if you have not participated in the EL EBF, get involved. Talk with your finance people, human resources, superintendent. That's the best way to really find out what funds are there for the students and what you can use them for. I talk to people every single day who say that they are not part of those discussions. And so if you can talk to your admin team and say, look, I serve as the EL coordinator or director, can I please be involved in some of these discussions? I think that's the best way to get this started in the right direction, to make sure that that funding is going toward our students and their families. So we really encourage you to get on board as much as possible. Also, we read thousands and thousands of those grant periodic reports on those spreadsheets. Let me give you some words of advice. Elaborate, just like we tell our students. Don't turn in grant periodic reports that say bought materials or PD or summer school. They will be returned. It has to be very specific to make sure that it aligns to our Title III qualifications. So for example, we see some things that may make you chuckle, like we had dance lessons, doesn't count. We provided a dinner to our families, doesn't count. We have a multilingual family night. Well, if it's specifically for your EL students, yes, but a lot of them are for the entire district, so it does not count. So you have to be really careful where your Title III funds are being spent, because you've all been in situations where the whole school is invited, not just the EL students, and then we have to be really careful how those funds are being spent. So these are all just the little tidbits of information I've learned with ISB over the past 2 years, and I just want to forward that information to your admin team so they can be aware to be as specific as possible when filling out your reports. Okay, so let's talk about some EL records. How many of you are in charge of your EL files? Most of you. Me, like most of you, have been monitored before, staying at work till midnight and on nights and weekends getting our EL folders in place. We all know the stress of that. Well, as you know, ISB monitoring is starting again. We're going to be monitoring. We just did CPS this past year, and now we're starting another monitoring process very soon. If your district is chosen, we want to make sure that your files are in place. And even if we're not choosing you, we want you to get your files in place because we want to keep track of our EL records. So, a lot of you have been sending us copies of the checklist that you put in your EL folders, which is wonderful, and thank you for checking with us to make sure you have everything included. Here are some documents that need to probably go on your checklist in front of your EL folders. Your entry and exit information, your WIDA or your access scores, your results of the screener, your student information, including their language, their grade level, their attendance records, their part-time rationale form, as Joanne had showed you previously, documentation of conferences or notification with families, and making sure you have that report card waiver. For example, if a child, or if a family wants all of their documents sent home in Spanish, make sure you have that report card waiver filled out and put in the EL file to say, and the whole entire office knows all documentation must go home in Spanish. That is the requirement from that. So anything that pertains to EL, do not keep in the EL classroom. You can keep a copy in the EL classroom, but everything should be housed in the CUME folder, which is within an EL folder inside the CUME folder. So a lot of people use a green EL folder inside the CUME or a yellow EL folder inside the CUME. Whatever color you decide, it should be different than your IEP folder. And it should have all their EL documentation. So a lot of you have called and emailed us. We appreciate that. Call us and ask us more questions about what needs to go inside those folders. Report cards. Make sure that if they need to be translated, that report card waiver indicates that. So if you have Arabic report cards or Polish report cards or Urdu report cards that are needed, make sure that your parents know that they have that legal right to a report card that is translated. We also need to indicate either 3 or 4 times a year when you're sending out report cards what their EL status is. So a lot of people have an EL progress report that they send out alongside of report cards, or they actually have a component of their report card that gives their listening, speaking, reading, and write data actually on the report card itself. It's up to you whether you want them to be separate documents or if you want them to be on the same combined report card. But make sure that your parents are aware of the services and that they have progress 3 or 4 times a year. Additional resources. We have something called the English Learner Toolkit from OELA that we are going to give you the link in 2 slides over. But basically, if any BPAC member or parents who's questioning maybe why their child was screened, we know that question's happening every day, please refer to this toolkit topic and have them talk about with your staff members, especially if they're incoming to the principal's office asking a lot of questions, ask them to go over this toolkit. And even have a staff meeting going over this toolkit so all your staff members are aware of EL programs, resources, rules, and responsibilities. A lot of you I've seen as I've looked around the room today have been on our multilingual website. We refer to this daily. We just modified it this summer. We would love for you to refer to this anytime you have a phone call or email to us. As I stated earlier, refer to Section 228 of the Administrative Code. Please refer to all the WIDA rules and regulations like Trevor and Barry. They are our leads from the state of Illinois. The toolkit that I just spoke about, definitely talk to your BPAC members about that as well as your staff. We also have a number of ISB guidance documents. Penny referred to our brand new matrix that just came out a few weeks ago. That will help you when you're hiring ESL or bilingual teachers. So if you have teachers or paraprofessionals who just happen to speak another language, really refer to that matrix to get them certified. They can get that ELS TBE license very quickly just by taking the test to the Illinois Certification Testing System. We also have subsequent teaching endorsements, the ELS TBE. We just had 2 Saturdays with the VIT teachers. So we met a lot of you 2 Saturdays ago, meeting all the new teachers coming from Spain and Mexico. And we encourage you to get involved in learning more about bringing teachers in from other countries if you have a high need. And we also are looking toward EL program planning for the future. We're referring to the bilingual service plan that Sang was just talking about. This is our ISB team who is here today. There are now 15 of us. We have a new member who just started with us on Friday. Like I said, we have been in your shoes. We are here for you. If you have any questions, please talk to us anytime this week. Joanne is going to address the rest of us. Thank you.
Okay, so
I saw something earlier this week, actually yesterday, and it was too late to update the slides. But there's a meme going around of the character from Beetlejuice, right? And it's like, are you feeling a little overwhelmed? He says, why? Do I look like it? Right? And so I'm sure that you all are kind of feeling a little overwhelmed because you have just gotten ESL Bilingual 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, and 200 combined in 3 hours. That's okay. It's all right. All of us together will get through it. Again, you have a principal consultant who's assigned to your district who can assist you with any questions that you have. As you're here for the rest of the meeting, look for the people with the dots. Right? Blue dots are other new directors. Make friends with them. They will commiserate with you. They will share their struggles with you. You will learn from each other. Yellow and red dots are more experienced bilingual directors. Ask them questions. They have been there. And then if you want to speak with us or any representatives from IRC, are more than happy to help answer some of your questions while you're here. There was a question that was shared earlier about parking. If you are staying at the hotel, you will not be charged for parking that is covered in the master bill for the event. So if you are here attending and you're spending the night here at the hotel, your parking is already covered. So that should be good. If you have questions, contact the IRC people. Now, I am very cognizant of time. I want to thank all of you for coming. I hope that this powerhouse session of a flood of information was somewhat helpful to you. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Have a great afternoon. Yeah. So we are going to make edits to the slides to fix those mistakes that we found. Okay. And then we will share it with Josie. Hopefully by tomorrow. And it'll be uploaded to Crowd Compass and shared that way.